Perfect. So I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Legislative and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lovell, Mayor Baird,
Here.
Councilmember Shields,
Here.
Councilmember Pryor.
Here.
Okay.
All right, looks like we have quorum. First matter on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
Chair, I move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Baird, second by Councilmember Pryor to approve the agenda. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Shields,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
Mayor Baird.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any public comments today?
Not aware of
Not
any.
that I'm aware of.
Okay. Next matter on our agenda is approval of the February 13th action letter. Do I have a motion?
Chair, motion to approve the action letter.
Second.
Thank you. Thanks. We have a motion by Mayor Baird, second by Councilmember Pryor to approve February 13th action letter. Can we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Shields,
Aye.
and Mayor Baird.
Aye.
Okay. And then the only other item on our agenda, substantive item, is review of the lobbyist report, discussion of current legislative affairs. Mr. Head, would you like to lead that discussion?
Sure. Before we really dig into that, the mayor and I need to report to you. Let me turn up my audio just a little bit. That last Friday, I believe it was. Oh, there's Mia again. Last Friday, the mayor got directly, or maybe it was Thursday, got directly contacted by Richard Sheets from MML related to a hearing that was taking place on House Bills 651, 479, and 647. There are three bills that do about the same thing related to video franchise fees. Right now, the law is unclear as to whether or not video providers, streaming providers, are required to pay the video franchise tax. And there is a lawsuit ongoing with the city of Creve Coeur on the St. Louis side that basically says that yes, you need to be paying these taxes. There has been a judge has made a decision that yes, in fact, you are a video service provider and you should be paying the franchise or the tax. It appears that these bills are an end around to try to short circuit that lawsuit. And we were asked by MML, and I think the mayor left a message for Representative Engel related to this. She is apparently the ranking minority member of the, and I forget which committee it is. It's the House Rules Regulatory Oversight Committee. So it's one of the rules committees that it had to go to after it cleared its initial committee. So the mayor did reach out. I also reached out to our lobbyist and let him know that we had serious concerns about those bills. I haven't heard back from him as to what occurred on all of this yet, but I would anticipate probably today or tomorrow I will. So we did take that action. It was very immediate. I think whenever we were contacted that morning at 2 o'clock that afternoon or 1 o'clock that afternoon, the hearing was taking place. So between the two of us, we just went ahead and said, yeah, we think this one's kind of an easy one, and we're going to go ahead and let folks know that we have concerns.
Okay, thank you for that report. I think that's certainly in line with the priorities that this committee has stated before in terms of protecting local sources of revenue and that sort of thing. So I appreciate you all taking prompt action on that.
I will start with the landfill bill. It has been voted out of local government committee, and it has been, and the rules committee that it was assigned to, and it's been reported do pass. It was unanimous coming out of both committees. It does look like it will get to the floor. The floor leader is one of our reps, Representative Patterson, and our understanding is it will be coming to the floor at some point in the relatively near future. Senate Bill 590, the Senate bill companion to the landfill bill, it hasn't even been assigned to committee. So hopefully what will happen is that 909, the House bill, will go ahead and get out of the House and get sent to the Senate, and then they will have a little more impetus to work on this instead of trying to do their own bill, maybe. But 590 hasn't even gotten an assignment. We are also watching House Bill 606. It doesn't directly impact 909 or Senate Bill 590, but what it does is that says that once a preliminary application or an application for preliminary investigation or something like that is filed related to a landfill, that a city cannot undertake a change to zoning in order to prevent that landfill from coming into place. So we're watching that bill to make sure that it doesn't get amended or doesn't get slapped into something somewhere, and we don't end up with that language over in 909. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep 909 clean and it won't get a whole bunch of amendments that will glom it up and kill it. But that's our hope. But we are watching those because those are kind of the landfill bills that are out there. And because of the subject matter, they could get amended to include anything landfill related right up to the last minute. So we're watching those pretty carefully. Let's see. I'll run through a few others. So there is Senate Bill 131, which is also a concern, and it is moving along in the process. It would remove the local tax on food, which, from a consumer standpoint in an era of high inflation sounds like a great idea, but it will cost the cities of the state, the local governments of the state, $1 billion. So it's extremely costly, and it would be very harmful. I do not know what the direct impact would be on the city. I'm not sure we can easily break out. Even if you took like the 3 high V's and you said what's food and what's not food, I'm not sure that would be super easy to do. Now maybe Department of Revenue could, because they don't receive funds on food because it's already removed at the state level. So I'm not sure how easy that would be to get, but I don't know what that number is right now. House Joint Resolution 43 related to initiative petitions. This is one that is apparently coming. It has been it's been voted out, do pass, and it would require that initiative petitions to the state constitution, instead of requiring a simple majority to pass, would require a 60% vote in order to pass. I don't remember I know the medical marijuana vote passed by more than 60%. I don't remember what the recreational one was, and I don't think the Medicare expansion passed by more than 60%. Maybe it did. I've kind of forgotten. So I think this is a way to reduce the impact of the initiative petitions on the state. This is not directly impacting us. I follow it as a student of government and constitutional structure and all of that, and I find it interesting. So I've kept track of that one. There's a bill, House Bill 246. I don't think it by itself is moving, but it may get attached to something else transportation related. But it prohibits fees for on-street parking. So cities would not be able to establish like a permit program or have parking meters or anything like that for on-street parking. Let's see. Senate Bill 96 would require a unanimous vote to approve any CID or TDD. So anytime the city was entertaining a CID or TDD, it would require a unanimous vote of the city council in order for that to be approved. Senate Bills 104 and 105, sponsored by Senator Searboy, reduce the assessment for personal property taxes and real property taxes respectively. The personal property tax would decrease 1% per year from its current 33.33% until the year 2035. So we're talking about 12 years. So it would end up being at 21.33% instead of 33%. 105 would deal with real property, and it would drop for 19% from 19% by 1% a year until it's set at 15% in 2027. Now, I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, because the Hancock Amendment would still operate as long as you weren't going above your maximum authorized amount, like $1 per thousand or whatever that is. You could go all the way back up to that authorized rate, so long as you weren't adding more revenue. So I'm not sure that the impact of this ends up being great. It just means that the rate is higher based upon the reduction in the assessed valuation. So I'm not sure what the point of that is. Senate Bill 218. This one is kind of interesting, because if you remember when we were doing all the redistricting related to council districts, this one would require that any redistricting must occur at least 6 months prior to the filing date, the first date of filing for any local election. So our filing date was in early December. We didn't even have the data till late September. So we could not have complied with the statute, which means the redistricting would not have been effective for that 2022 election. So just I can sort of understand 6 months prior to the election, because that was essentially the rule that we applied, if you remember, because that kind of makes sense, because you have to be a resident of the city for 6 months prior to running for city council. I could see how that would make sense. Senate Bill 306, this is a bill that would allow schools to opt out of a TIF. So they could pass a resolution removing individual properties from a TIF district. I know in a lot of parts of the state that school districts and cities are at odds over the TIF situation, but I like to think that Lee Summit and our schools work so closely together that most of the time, by the time we propose a TIF, we've addressed most of the school district's concerns. We've had such great communication. We've shared back and forth. I mean, this gives school districts a lot of power, and it would essentially end the use of TIF in most locations. And maybe that's the point. I'm not sure, but it would be very difficult to do a TIF over the objection of a school district at that point. There are a couple bills in the Senate specifically that deal with workers' compensation and changing the whether or not PTSD is included in work comp. We don't oppose the inclusion of PTSD in work comp, because absolutely it's a condition that is justified. The only thing that we oppose about it, and we have for the last several years, is the way these bills shift the burden. Instead of the individual proving that their PTSD was caused by something work-related, it's up to the city to prove by clear and convincing evidence, that's the standard, that it was absolutely not related to their work. It's really hard to prove a negative, and that has been our issue all along. And we do think if a bill like that was passed, it would increase our work comp costs fairly dramatically. And I don't know that we want to continue to pay more and more and more for insurance, and we already are paying more every year for insurance, but that would certainly cause that to jump a little bit. There are also some bills dealing with the I-70. There's one called that creates a new fund called the Interstate 70 Improvement Fund, and it establishes that 2% of any amount of state revenue above a certain amount will go into a fund that would be there for the improvement of Interstate 70. There was also a push by MML, I know, but I don't see it reflected in any bills, that while the state has this large surplus, to dedicate a portion of that to rebuilding some chunks of I-70, specifically talking about extending the multiple lanes further east from like the Blue Springs area, also doing some work to widen Interstate 70 around Columbia, and then also once you get over towards Wentzville and that area, and a little bit west, to widen there. And it was a $500 million ask that was being made. So I know there is a lot of discussion about I-70. Senate Bill 476, and I raise this one because I can't understand the thinking behind it. Not that it appears to be going anywhere, but no city could require a postgraduate degree when hiring. So you could not require someone to have a postgraduate degree. So you could not require a higher degree like a master's degree, but it wouldn't apply to positions that are appointed by elected officials. So you could still require the city manager, city attorney, and the city prosecutor in the city of Lee Summit to have postgraduate degrees, but the city could not require literally anyone else to have a postgraduate degree for any job. So your assistant city managers who could step in at the time when you needed someone to take over, you could not require them to have a postgraduate degree, which I don't understand. So Senate Bill 478, this one caught some traction early, but it
Are
seems
you
like
just enjoying this at this point? I mean, telling us all these things?
well,
I mean,
I just pick up the most absurd ones, Mayor.
okay,
I just
I was
have
gonna
to.
say, I mean, this is getting entertaining at this point.
I could say a lot more about some of these,
All right.
but I'm biting my tongue. So I only have 3 left, so it'll end after that. 478 allows voters to repeal taxes. So a voter would be allowed to file a petition, essentially like a referendum or initiative process. You could file a petition to repeal any tax previously approved by the voters. So property tax, sales tax, you would no longer be able to bond based on any of those taxes. You would be writing things like certificates of participation at a much higher rate, or you would turn everything over to a pay-as-you-go if a bill like that were to pass. I don't think it's going anywhere, but the absurdity of it just sort of surprises me. So 479, all local elections for any tax increase must occur only at the primary and general election dates. There are several bills about elections, and this is one where, you know, the local election day, the April date, would no longer be available for a school district or a city to place a tax issue on there. When I started doing municipal law, it's admittedly quite a while ago at this point, but when I started, you could have an election in February. There was an election date in February. If your charter said you could have one in March. There was one that was in April, one in June, one in August, and one in November. And at this point, we are limited to April, August, and November already. So I don't know what purpose that serves. And then there's a couple of bills also that will either require local election, anyone who files for a local election to declare a party. It would still be a nonpartisan election, but it would require you to declare a party upon your when you declare your candidacy. And then there's also another one that requires closed primaries. So Missouri for the longest time has had open primaries, and it would require closed primaries. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Oh no, I was
did
just
some highlights.
I was getting tickled over.
I look for the absurd ones just because I think they're fun to read.
Thank you, Mr. Head.
I wouldn't have known about that, and I'm glad I do know about it. Just,
Well, they're all in that
Um,
mini page report that we get from our lobbyists.
I know, but I appreciate you filtering it for us.
Mr. Head, in the latest update we got, I think there might have been some information about the Troop A headquarters funding. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Well, I don't have, I mean, I guess maybe no news is good news at this point. You know, there was a bill that we thought that we might be able to get attached to, but as I understand it, the sponsors have not been willing. The issue, from what I understand, is that no one has been able to identify a source. MoDOT has essentially said that they are not interested in spending any more money on this. The governor was not interested in including it because he said it was just too much money. So the issue is finding some entity within the state government that is willing to do this. Now, I will say staff is putting together some information to try to take another run at some folks to try to find some funding somewhere, because I don't think most of the legislature or most of the folks controlling the purse strings here understand what this could look like if we don't do it. And for the life of me, I don't understand how we have a local government who's willing to essentially do most of MoDOT's work for them. We're putting it together. We're pulling together the partners. We've created a TIF district that would pay for a huge chunk of these facilities that are going to be the state's facilities, not ours. But nobody's willing to come up with the remaining funds. So we don't have a vehicle yet for it, nor right now do we have a funding source that we can identify at the state level that's willing. Now, like I said, staff is putting together some additional information, and I've made it, we've talked a lot about it, and my inclination is it's got to be, what we show whoever has got to be dramatic, it's got to be simple, and it's got to be easily understandable, because they're only going to have 5 minutes or something to talk about it. And you've got to be able to put it in front of them and show them just really what it would look like if we don't end up being able to move that facility. So that's where we're at right now. One of the things we talked about last week was the fact that, that entire Browning extension that we spent, I don't know how much money on, was really in support of this realignment of the intersection. And when you start factoring all of those things in, the city has spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to make it possible for this intersection to be improved. And I don't think that maybe our partners at the state fully understand how committed the city has been to this realignment. So
at this point, what is our action item? Obviously, I believe, Mayor, when you were in Jefferson City, this was one of the things that you talked about. Is that right? The last time you guys were down there?
Yes.
Okay. So,
well,
go
I
ahead.
think there's just, Brian works with our lobbyists, and he and Mark Dunning sometimes get information. But we as council members, we obviously have access to representatives and senators, and Councilmember Pryor and I were at a recognition ceremony the other night, and I don't want to speak for you, Councilmember Pryor, but you basically asked Senator Searpoy point blank, what are our chances? And he was very confident about the Highway Patrol, but not the other big asks that we made. So we talked to him about 470 highway and how it's 4-lane and everything around it is 6-lane, and what an issue that's going to become over the course of time because of all the growth and development that's going on. So I loved it. I didn't hear it, but she did. So if you have questions about what he specifically said, but it's always disappointing to hear that you're not going to get the big ask, but the little one, maybe the big ask helped us get the little one. I don't know. But that's just his gut. That's what he was telling her. So he does have great connections at the Senate with regard to the finance or the budget chair, and he are good friends. And so I think he has a lot of insight. And the last I heard from, let's see, Mark Dunning had a conversation with Kemp Strickler, Representative Strickler, and basically the advice was, or I don't know, I can't remember who Mark Dunning spoke to, but it might have been somebody with Highway Patrol, but just encouraging us to stay positive when we make asks and not be negative. So like, in other words, not saying, well, we're going to find a way to get this done with or without your funds, because that probably would be taken negatively. So I need to back off that type of talking point. We need to let them know that it's just urgent, that we are imperative that we have that funding so we can do this the right way.
And to further add to that, so staff met last week, and we are putting together some information that sort of distills all this into a more simplified understanding of how committed the city has been to this, and the other partners are committed to it. And we do have an alternate plan if for some reason we weren't able to move the Highway Patrol, but nobody's going to like it, is part of the problem. But we're putting together that information, and then I think the intent is, once we have that information all distilled, there's going to be a discussion with our contacts at Office of Administration to figure out who we need to kind of get that in front of, so we can have that and try to get a little bit of push here as we go toward the end of the session.
So I trust you and staff to put together good information there. Is it possible to have any kind of visuals that we can show people? Like, here's a mock-up of what it would look like if we had the full funding, and here's without, and some bullet points of that without the full funding. This access is going to be worse. It's going to be worse for public safety, something like that. That's very easy to show someone, like in your elevator pitch. Here is what's going to be so positive for the city if we can get this funding, and here's what's really going to be a challenge if we don't.
Yes, that's precisely one of the things that that will be part of this information. And when it gets distilled, I'm sure we'll be able to share it out with council.
Okay. No, that would be great. I just want to make sure that we're, focusing on what we can control, what we can do, and getting those resources to our council members so that we can talk with other elected officials. Just, I understand all the frustration, but I just want to figure out, what can I do to help this along? What can we do to help this along? So, Mayor, do you have any other thoughts there?
Yes. We just need to, there comes a point where with all of these things, I don't know about the Highway Patrol, but the other issues, there just may come times where we have to have calls to actions, and timing will be everything. So it's important that we stay in tune to the lobbyists and listen to Mr. Head as to what's going on, in case we need to make a big push to do a campaign blitz or phone calls or emails to representatives and senators if a vote is about to happen. So like last week, I was notified about this, the video franchise fee or whatever. And so I made, sent a quick message to Representative Engel. The same will come up with the landfill. The same could happen with Highway Patrol. The same could happen with who knows what. So we just need to be responsive and ready. And is that pretty accurate, Mr. Head?
Yeah, and typically, if we'd had a little bit more lead time for the chair and for Councilmember Pryor, we do have the quick reaction group that consists of the mayor, the chair of this committee, and then the city manager. we would normally try to convene that through just a quick conversation to get direction. But this was literally happening in just a few hours. And so we kind of took the liberty of going ahead and making a decision. I give guidance frequently to the lobbyists just based upon what our priorities have been. I sort of have to interpret those priorities a little bit and kind of give him general guidance. But when it comes to something specific like that, my preference would be able to get that group together on a very quick basis. But it was so fast; it was coming so fast the other day. It seemed unlikely that we would be able to clear enough schedules at the same time on the same day to get there. So you may be for the chair. Chair Shields, you may be hearing from me or from Mr. Dunning once in a while. There may be a text message or an email that comes in that says, "Hey, we need to get the group together quickly to have a discussion about something." So,
Certainly. Councilmember Pryor, do you have something you want to add?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I was wondering, and I doubt that you probably do, but the most recent resolution that the Kansas City Council passed, do you know what that stated regarding the landfill? Because there's a lot of different things and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it.
I have not seen the actual resolution. All I have seen is the reporting on the resolution. It indicated that they, quote, put a moratorium on the development of any landfill in Kansas City. Now, I'm not sure how, moratorium is sort of a dirty word, and that's not the word I would have chosen. But I have not seen the actual resolution, but I'm sure we can probably find it online. I can look for that and we'll send it out to everybody.
Okay, thank you. I've heard some people are saying that was enough to potentially shut the landfill down, but I feel like if it was, then more people would be talking about it. So I wasn't sure exactly what was in it.
Moratoriums or delays, administrative type delays, can only go for a certain amount of time. They can't last forever. Otherwise, it's a improper taking, and you don't want to go down that path. So, it's probably time limited, which in the scheme of things, when you're talking about developing a landfill that is going to probably take a decade to get actually in place and accepting solid waste, a 3-month or a 6-month delay is probably not that big a deal. And that's probably about as long. If we were doing an administrative delay, that would be as long. 6 months is on the outside of how comfortable I would be of putting that delay on there. So, but I'll try to find the resolution today and get it out to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
And what I understand on that, and Brian will look forward to your update, is that it was a delay until they can conduct a study or an evaluation on the actual needs of the city. But to me, that wasn't very strong language. So we'll see. But I think I'm sure we're all in agreement. We need to continue pursuing our remedies at the state legislature. And
it wasn't unanimous. There were two members who voted no. So.
Okay. Do we have any other matters that we want to discuss? I don't know, Mayor Baird, I know you've already reported to full council about your visits to Jeff City, so I don't know if there's anything else that you want to talk about. In this committee, you said you were very excited for us to meet, so I want to make sure you have the opportunity.
Yeah, it's, I think just to state that it meant a lot that a bunch of council members went to Jefferson City. We've been as active as we can be with regarding the issues in front of us at the state level. And we're fortunate right now that we have, I think, representatives and senators that are willing to fight for us. It's just, we have to make sure that we're continuing to build those relationships. And I think we've done a good job of that the last few years. I think it'll help. I think that's one of our strengths right now. So the fact that we have senators that have been there for a little bit and representatives that have influence and the fact that we have good relationships with those representatives and senators, and we just need to continue down that path.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Head, was there any other items you wanted to discuss under the lobbyist report or anything like that?
Nope, that was it. I just had to pick out the most interesting, the
absolutely.
ones that are moving that have direct impact, or the ones that I find to be the most absurd.
Then I think we're on to roundtable. Does anyone have any items for roundtable? Right, hearing none. What will the date of our next meeting be, Gina?
It'll be April 10th at 11:30.
Okay, perfect. Hearing nothing further, then I think we are adjourned at 12:12 p.m.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.